Welcome students to another day and another fun opportunity to do a little bit of cooking here at school and at home. Today we're going to be focusing in on working with cheese. Cheese, of course, is a milk product, and you learned previously that the history of cheese is pretty storied and has an interesting background. Lots of different cheeses. I hope you're going to be able in your lifetime to explore many of them. Today we're going to be making black bean and corn quesadillas, a kind of a fun twist, a non-meat but high protein twist on a quesadilla. I have previously read over this recipe and I hope you have too. Follow along with your recipe as we do this demonstration. I've read over the recipe, I've assembled the ingredients and the equipment so everything's at my fingertips and I can go real quickly. So I'm going to just follow this recipe and you follow along with me. Step number one is to work with your onion. I have provided you with a slice of onion that's kind of cut in half and then a slice down, and you can see how I've got some rings going on. I'm going to remove this piece that has the brown on it. I don't want to use that. And then using my French knife and kind of like a clock, I'm going to go around the clock, cutting these into pieces and using the rings of the onion to help cut it into very small pieces. All right, I'm noticing please notice that I'm going to curl my fingertips under to keep them out of the way, resting the blade of my knuckles against the edge of the blade against my knuckles, brushing that always away from my chopped piece, or my edge, and there I have a bunch of chopped onions. I can look at my recipe and it says I want to finely chop it, which could also be, I guess, referred to as a dice. We want these in smaller rather than larger pieces, but I don't want you going to town and mincing it all of the way. After I've done that, again, I'm just going to push always away from the blade edge, and I am done with cutting those onions. Step number two talks about the black beans. Black beans are, you can cook your own, but I've just found them in the grocery store. This is a black bean. They're pre-cooked, and I have, as the instructions said, put them in the colander, and I have rinsed them with wet running cold water. I'm going to use my paper towel just to kind of pat them dry. We do that because some of the liquid, the moisture that's found there with the beans, it can actually kind of upset your stomach a little bit, make you a little gassy. So I'm just going to pat them dry with the paper towel. And then I'm also going to do that with my corn. The corn I have previously put in the strainer and rinsed it, and then I'm just going to use that paper towel to pat this dry. Alrighty. Next thing up, step number 4 says we're going to heat the oil in the saucepan over medium heat. I've gone ahead and put my burner on medium. I'm going to use some olive oil. You could use canola oil or vegetable oil. You really could. And I'm going to be using, your instructions said, just 1 teaspoon. So this is my 1 teaspoon measuring spoon. And I'm going to pour this into my 1 teaspoon measuring spoon very carefully so I don't make too big of a mess. Olive oil is oil that's pressed from the seeds of olives. I'll pop that in there. It has a little bit of a unique taste, not anything that you necessarily pull out, but it's very enriching, and olive oil is a very healthy oil to have. I'm going to give this just a half a second to go ahead and heat up, and I'm going to stir this just around the bottom and give it a minute to heat up. I can put my hand over the top of this and I can kind of feel that it's already all warmed up. Dropped a little bit of water in there and you can see that it's sizzling. So that's a good sign that our oil's hot. If ever you have a question, you can always take just a little bit of water on your fingertips, come over here and flick it. And if it goes ahead and starts sizzling that up, you know that you're hot. Oil will burn, so you shouldn't be sitting there for too long waiting for that oil to heat up or letting it heat up too long, because then you're going to be in trouble. It will burn. I've got 1 tablespoon, kind of have an overflowing, and pop that in there. And here's my half a tablespoon. Pop this in here, and I'm going to go ahead and stir that. This right here on your instructions say that you are just going to cook it and stir it gently with your wooden spoon. I'm using my silicone spoon simply because it's right by my stove top, and of course it's going to serve that same sort of function. This technically is a saute where we're just cooking it really nice and fast. What this is going to do is change the texture, so instead of being crispy crunchy, it's going to be soft. Instead of kind of having a biting flavor, it will be mild. I have found through my years of experience that maybe I don't necessarily, or haven't always necessarily liked fresh onions, but when it comes to cooked onions, everything that it goes into, especially in little tiny bits like this, I really think it enhances the flavor. And you'll find that onions are used quite a bit in the cooking world. Now you're going to know these are done a couple of different ways. The first way is, what? If you see any browning happening, I want you to stop. The second way that you can tell if this is done is you can take a fork and just into one of your pieces, you can you see I'm still kind of crunchy? Then I'm not done. So I'm just going to be patient. I know that that's kind of a tough thing to be sometimes. And while I'm being patient, I'm going to get my black beans and corn measured out. It says I need to have 3/4 of a cup, and 3/4 I could do 1/4 3 times, or I can use a half and kind of flatten that out slightly, and a 1/4. And then that's just going to sit here. Come back and give a quick little stir. I'm starting to see some browning happening, so let's quickly check these guys real fast. They'll become translucent. Do you know what that word means? Yeah, it means just a little bit see-through. I think we're there, but I'm going to take a minute and measure this corn very quickly. There's 1/2 of that, and 1/4. So that's going to be 3/4 there. And I'm going to say we're ready to go. So on step number 6, it says to stir in the beans. So pop in those beans. Ooh, it's starting to smell delicious in here. I'm going to put in this 3/4 cup of beans. Step number 7 says to stir in the corn. I know, this is kind of gourmet, fancy, huh? Stir in the 3/4 cup of corn. After we've got the corn, on step number 8, it says we're going to add this brown sugar. I have previously measured that. I'm going to just put that in there. Stir that in there. We're going to add some salsa. This is also measured for students at school. This is 2 tablespoons of salsa. I'm going to add that in. After we've got the salsa, you're going to notice it says to add some red pepper flakes. This is going to give it just a little bit of a kick. This is some crushed red pepper, some hot peppers that have been dried. We'll pop that in. Those of you who like things hot probably know about red pepper, don't you? All right, it says we're going to cook it until it's heated through about 3 minutes. You maybe can tell, I can see it here that there's steam coming off the top. I would want that to be nice and warm in there. And get it warmed all the way through so it's hot inside of that quesadilla. I've got a lid that I'm going to put on this pan to keep things warm while I am waiting for the next part of my steps to take place. All right, I'm going to, I think, maybe I'll be just a little bit fast. I'm going to come over here now, and the next thing that I'm working with is grating some cheese. Now this particular quesadilla doesn't have cheddar cheese, but it has instead some Monterey Jack. Monterey Jack is kind of a mild cheese. It is softer than cheddar cheese, but it's not as soft as cream cheese. It has a mild flavor and is delicious. I'm going to choose today to put out a piece of wax paper on my countertop, and I'm going to grate my cheese onto this wax paper. You're going to see why in a minute. All right, come over here and let's give this one more stir. Still nice and warm. Stay warm there just a minute longer. And I'm going to grate this. And I'm going to use, I'm not going to use that, that's one of the things I don't like about this grater. Those of you that are here at school know that you have a box grater, and that's because I don't like this collapsing. The cheese is going to be divided into 4 sections, and if you grate it on a plate, that's fine, but it just doesn't seem like there's that much room on it. Be careful with that, because you know that this is actually a form of a knife. Those of you that have had your knuckles run up against it, you know what I'm talking about. All right, so at this point, I'm going to pull this off of my heat. This is all the way heated through. Oh yes, but I got to keep it warm. So that's where my lid's going to come in for sure. And I'm just going to place this to the side. And in the meantime, I'm going to pull out my skillet, my frying pan, and I'm going to look at step number 13. It says, for each quesadilla, melt 2 teaspoons of the butter in the large skillet over medium heat. So I was already on medium heat. It's ready just to change out and do that. You have been given just over a tablespoon of butter. You're going to just take your knife and cut it in half. If you put all of your butter in on the first one, that will be the good one. And the second quesadilla, notice you're making 2 quesadillas, the second one won't be as tasty. I don't want to include any paper in there, so I'll pull that to the side, and my instructions tell me that I'm going to melt 2 teaspoons of this butter over medium heat in here. All right, I'm not going to put my tortillas in until that butter's all the way melted down. I will run this around my frying pan and get that melting down. That's going to help give flavor. It's going to help give crispness. Is that a word that I can say? Crispness. And it is going to give a little bit of color to it too. Now it doesn't want to leave my pancake turner, does it? You can see that butter is just nice and sizzly. If you leave your butter too long by itself on this, it's gonna burn. So as soon as your butter's melted, you're ready to move on to assembling that tortilla or that quesadilla. I'm gonna place this tortilla in the skillet, and then I'm gonna come back over here to my cheese and divide that between divide it into 4 sections. And then the instructions tell you you're going to put one of these piles on here. It's going to become not only melted, but it'll almost become like a glue that helps hold everything together. I'm going to take about half of my bean mixture, bean and corn and all sorts of things, and I'm just spread that around right here. Just about half of it. Oops, that was a little heavy in one spot, wasn't it? You might want to divide this in half to begin with. It's not super thick, but it makes a nice layer. Makes a nice layer. That's about half of it. And then finally, you're going to come over here and take that other half and sprinkle it. Let me get it. Sprinkle it on the top right here. Get that nice and spread out. Okay, after you've got that done, you're gonna pop this on the top. That's your top part of your quesadilla, and you're just gonna let it sit. You have to be a little bit patient, maybe waiting about 2 to 3 minutes until the bottom side is golden brown. Not only will it be golden brown, but the heat will have transferred up through the tortilla. It's going to be hitting the cheese, and it's going to cause the cheese to melt. Now, if you've got your heat too high, that tortilla is going to brown before that cheese has the opportunity to melt. And then you're stuck with either having non-melted cheese and a really dark tortilla, or if you wait till the cheese is melted, then that tortilla might be black, might be burnt. So you're just gonna let it sit. And I can feel just a half a titch that this is starting to warm up on this side. If you're curious, you can take a half a peek, but give it for sure a good minute before you go in and take a look. And then we're going to, with our turner, just take a peek. Oh, look at that. Can you see that? The cheese is kind of starting to melt. I don't know if you can from the distance of the camera. But this next part's just a little bit tricky. You're gonna use your hand and you're gonna be close to the heat, so you've gotta be super careful. I'm gonna put my turner, rather than right side up, I'm gonna turn it upside down just to get underneath here. And I'm gonna take a little peek and look inside, or on the underside. And I don't think I'm quite done yet, so let's be just a little bit more patient. All right, you'll repeat the same process with the second one. So though I'm not gonna show you the second quesadilla, you'll know you'll do the exact same thing with it. The first thing that you cook in a pan is usually going to be the one that takes the longest to cook. So the second one will go faster. All right, let's take a peek again and see what we've got going on here. Oh, it's looking a little bit better, but I still don't think it's there. Still don't think it's there. All right, I'm gonna give it, that's all I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it 10 more seconds, and then I'm gonna call it quits, because I'm an impatient cook with you waiting for me to be done. So here we go with 10 seconds. All right, good. And I'm gonna come underneath here. I can kind of smell it toasting. I'm gonna put, you just see I'm gonna flip that now. I got the edge. I'm gonna flip this. Now this is the tricky part. You're gonna have to be both fast but careful. I'm gonna spread my hand out, flip that upside down, and see how that's starting to be that caramel color in there. That's really what I'm looking for. And I'm gonna give that, maybe if I were at home, I would give it a little bit longer. It looks like I got a bean on the bottom of my dish. And then I'm gonna give that time for the second side to brown. And while I'm waiting for that to brown, let's go ahead and pull these things out of the way as I get ready to, and again, you'll finish up that second one. Alrighty, got too many items and not enough hands. I want to get the cutting board over here. A quesadilla is something that's so flexible with so many different things that you can put inside of it. And when you serve a quesadilla, we're going to end up cutting it. And there are several things that you can cut it with. One, of course, is you can cut it with your French knife into the pie-shaped pieces. Another thing that you can cut it with is your kitchen shears. That's something that you could use your kitchen shears for. Another thing that you could use to cut it with is, believe it or not, pretty handy dandy, a pizza cutter. So lots of options of things that you can use to cut it with. I am going to just check and see, because remember I told you that the second go around is a lot faster cooking than the first go around. So flip over this real quick and I'm just gonna see. Oh, it's so close, but I don't think that I'm going to do it quite yet. I'm gonna give it 10 seconds. I'd love to see a caramel color. Can you see that in there? That caramel color coming? Just a little bit longer, it'll be perfect. And you do that when you're cooking this. Flip this, that looks so good. Oh my goodness. Let's check out the cheese. Let's see what's going on in here. Oh, stretchy, gooey, delicious. That's beautiful. All right, let's go ahead and say, that is light brown. I'm not gonna flip it to show you. You're just gonna have to take me on my word. I'm gonna quickly move it to my cutting board. Whoosh, because that pancake turner is not quite strong enough for me to handle it. I think I'm gonna use my kitchen shears. Let's go ahead and cut right into this. Can you hear it crunchy? Crunch, crunch, crunch. And you could probably cut this into 3 slices or 2 for each half. And let's just go ahead and, oh, you can see it. Stretchy, yummy, and delicious. Stretchy, yummy, and delicious, and includes both a vegetable and a protein food. You can dip this into your salsa for a side and enjoy. Black bean and corn quesadillas, a wonderful way to enjoy cheese. Enjoy!